Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, once again, we're going to talk about food, but we're going to talk about this possibility, and I know this is very far-fetched for some of you, and others like myself are like, we've been saying this for months, for years, for even decades. That folks, this is all planned. This has been planned out for a very long time. The whole pandemic, yeah, that was all planned. There's a lot of things that's been planned, folks. The whole economy, you can go back to 2008. You can go back to the dot-com bubble. You can go back a long ways. And you can find that they have been making plans for, I feel, the best way to put it is the destruction of America, the destruction of our civilization, because they want something different. They want this grand socialist utopia. We can see it with how they have teaching children in schools. I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, what they're doing now is drastic, and it's extreme, and it's vulgar, and it's grotesque. But most certainly, public schools have been indoctrination centers for many decades now. So when you look at the grand scheme of things and how things for at least since World War II have been very well orchestrated. I don't know how anyone can see that there isn't a plan to create this new world order, one world utopia. It's been prophesied for millennia, and we can see these globalist organizations, these NGOs, and very top of the level world leaders, from banking cartels to some of the wealthiest families on this planet. They have all been in the middle of planning this out. Now, I've said all that, and I know it sounds quite dramatic, to show you some stuff that's been going on for months now. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have any proof that this stuff has been orchestrated. I have no proof whatsoever that this is any more than just a coincidence. But the older I get and the more I learn, the less I believe in coincidences. And just like over the last couple of years with the wildfires, how they just seem so strange, and then come to find out many of those were being started by these Antifa groups or Antifa supporting groups. Same way with the riots and the burning and the orchestration of the destruction of some of these inner cities. I personally believe what I'm about to tell you is all part of that also. I would not be surprised, and let me make this clear, I have no evidence whatsoever. None. Not one bit. But it would not surprise me that at some point, someone starts to see the pattern and connect the dots and actually find some evidence that this is all being orchestrated. Once again, yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, a fertilizer plant exploded and burned out in Kansas. This is not the first time, and most of you are aware of these fertilizer plants, chemical fires, food processing plants, food warehouses, farms, they're mysteriously catching on fire and they're burning to the ground. And while I cannot find any evidence that the amount that this is happening at is normal, I think the average person would probably, once they see all the information, would say, this seems to be pretty abnormal. And how, else can you connect these dots when we're in the midst of food shortages, food price increases? They're telling us that due to the war in Europe and then China's lockdown in Shanghai, rising fuel prices and inflation here in the United States, the 1,200-year drought, and of course, the Biden administration wanting to take even more corn that goes into virtually every food product that we eat and convert it into fuel for our vehicles. We all know that there are definite shortages coming, and I guess the question is how drastic will those shortages be? And yet, while that's all going on, we have these food processing plants and food warehouses all over the country burning. along with fertilizer plants and chemical plants that somehow work in the farming industry, are also burning everywhere. Just a few days ago, I believe I mentioned on this channel not that long ago that as your Standard, which is a very well-known organic natural food type of bulk wholesaler, and their main headquarters was burnt to the ground. This has been going on for a while, folks, and some of you may be watching this and say, this is pretty deep in the conspiracy theory, man. I don't know if I can believe this. Well, you don't have to believe that there's any connection. You don't have to believe that this is orchestrated. But make no mistake about it, these plants are being burned. These places are being burned all over the country. And even if there is no orchestration to it, it's definitely harming the overall food supply chain system and the overall agricultural system. It may not be enough to completely stop it. Not any one of these places are enough, but they most certainly are damaging it. So how many are there? I mean, how many have burned to the ground? I did some research today, and while I can't confirm that this is all of them, most of these are within a 6-month period of time. There's a few that's just outside of that 6-month period of time. But of food processing plants, of meat processing plants, poultry, pork, beef, and then just places where they just manufacture food and food warehouses, in the last 6 to 9 months, 24 have burned to the ground. That's right, 24. You're all familiar with the Walmart warehouse up there in Indiana. There was another warehouse down in Texas, I believe it was, and it was the second largest food warehouse in the country. There's also been food pantry warehouses that's burned to the ground. There's been various different processing plants of any type of food product you can think of. They have burned to the ground. 24. At least 24. Those are the ones that I have found news articles for over the last 6 to 9 months. 24 food processing plants and food warehouses have mysteriously burned to the ground. And of course, some of them have some pretty good reasons why. Others, they're still under investigation. But the point is that, is it just me, or does that seem like an awful lot of food plants to burn to the ground right in the midst of the greatest food crisis this nation has probably ever seen? And what about fertilizer? You know, I just mentioned there was one yesterday in Kansas that burned to the ground. There was one in North Carolina a month and a half ago, one up in Washington State not that long ago. Well, how many altogether? In the last 6 months or so, 6 to 9 months, I have found 10 fertilizer or chemical plants, and these chemical plants predominantly deal with the agriculture, although there were a couple that I couldn't make a connection to agriculture. But they're definitely chemical plants that are used in industrial chemicals. 10 of them in the last 6 to 9 months have burned to the ground. That's a lot. So that's a total of at least 34 food and chemical fertilizer plants and warehouses in the last 6 to 9 months have burned to the ground. And there's still people out there that think that this is just a coincidence. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm trying to read too much into it. Maybe I have seen so much and read so much that I just can't believe anything anymore. But what I can tell you is that this doesn't make sense. And any logical, rational thinking person most likely would look at this under the circumstances that we are in as a nation and as a people and say, this is a little strange. I mean, we know for a fact that there have been these left-leaning domestic terrorist groups like, you know, I just slipped my mind, not BLM, but Antifa, and BLM probably, but Antifa that have instigated, you know, these fires in certain places. So why wouldn't they do this kind of stuff? Again, I'm not saying that they are. I have no evidence of that, but it is quite suspicious that this kind of stuff is going on all across the country, right in the midst, again, of probably, and you know, time will tell, but it very could possibly be the greatest food crisis that this country has ever seen. So what does this mean for us? Because that's where I always try to pull it back to. What does it mean? I mean, you can watch the news all the time and you can get scared and you can get worried and you can get angry and you can laugh. But if you don't put it into perspective and how it affects you, then what's the point? So what does it mean for us? Well, it means the same thing that I've been telling you now for weeks. You need to stock up. If, in fact, this is some type of orchestrated effort to bring down the food supply system here in the United States even faster and harder than it would naturally, then that's a really bad deal. But if it's not, if there's no orchestration behind all this, it's still worrisome, because each one of those, no matter if there's some small local or regional producer or some big massive warehouse or producer, they're all putting a crack in our food supply system, and it's all little by little damaging it more and more. And we should take this very serious, and we should stock up, and not just stock up, but right now, most of you right now need to be planning real hard and working real hard on planting and producing as much food as possible. Get out there and plant your gardens, folks, and plant as much as you can. You know, normally I wouldn't advise this, but this year, go overboard on your garden, go overboard on your planting. By this fall, if everything's back to normal and food prices are back to normal and the food supply is back to normal and you've got all this garden that you can't deal with, I assure you, you can find someone that will eat it. You can give it away. You can donate it to pantries. You can can it and put it away for long term, or dehydrate it, or you can do something with it, folks. You can do something with it. But if you don't do that, if you don't plant enough, if you don't plant extra, and things are as bad as I've been talking about, or even worse, it could be bad for you. I'm telling you, you need to get out there and you need to get busy being serious about producing your own food. Certainly stock up as much as you can, and while you still can. But get out there and produce the food also, because that's where you're going to really, really be self-sufficient. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, I know that I may just be pulling something out of the air with this, but I think there's something to it. It's getting to be too many, folks. I've been thinking along this line for a while, and once I really started digging into it, and I realized that there were this many. I mean, look at this little, just before I close out, look at this little meme or image that someone put together. That each one of those that you see on that are a news article of a food plant that has burned to the ground in the last 6 months. There are 19 just on that one right there alone. This is ridiculous, folks. It's been going on in other. I saw some articles of ones that are happening over in Europe also, but today I'm just focusing on the ones here in the U.S. Get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Folks, get ready. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.